Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Bytes. I'm your host, Max Bowen. In this episode, I'm talking with author and artist Mike Maihack for his soon to be released comic, The Moonlit Spiral. It's a great title, it's some beautiful artwork. I've been a fan of his work for a very long time. And we're going to talk all about the character creation, the world creation. We also dive into the business of comics. We talk about how to launch your own title, what's the first step to take. We also talk things like gear, software programs to use. There's a lot to learn here. Enjoy. Well, Mike, first off, I just want to say a big welcome to the show because I've been a fan of your work since I found it somehow on Instagram or Twitter. I can't recall which exactly, many moons ago. And I've been digging like the Batgirl and the Supergirl illustrations. It's like the rare bright moment in the social media morass. So great to have you on the show to talk about your eventually to be released title, The Moonlit Spiral. This is coming out in October on the other 6th. You wrote and drew this. So very happy that we get to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting. This will be the first I'm really going to be talking about the book, so I already
All
know what I'm
right.
going to say.
So we get to get everything out. I absolutely love
Yeah.
that. So I want to talk first about setting because having seen some panels from the book, it's a beautiful, beautiful setting. What went into just kind of like world building the
Mhm.
comic?
Well, it started off as I've always been into like I grew up reading like Lord of the Rings, the Narnia series, all these types of books where the characters are sort of like go off on some journey in some like fantastical land, or even just from our world into someplace else. But like simultaneously, I watched like a lot of cartoons growing up, a lot of Disney stuff, obviously, in the
Hmm.
80s. And then later, getting into some anime, I read manga. I love the Studio Ghibli stuff, all the Hayao Miyazaki. And so I wanted to kind of sort of combine sort of that those movies I grew up with in the 80s, like the Goonies and things like that, with that quality. And so I just started scribbling away drawings, kind of meshing those two things together without any having any real idea of what the story was going to be, characters, plot, just kind of just having fun. And this is right after I'd finished Cleopatra in Space, my previous graphic novel series. And I didn't want to do sci-fi again because I just did that for 10 years. So I wanted to do something a little different, something a little bit more organic, not so rigid, very loose. And that's just kind of how the world sort of developed. Kind of came out really colorful. Some of the creature building, I have two kids, two boys, and they're older now than when I started the book. I started the book like 5 years ago, but at the time he would draw like scribble little creatures and stuff, and I would try to weave those into the story a little bit. But the book just kind of evolved past of what that is, but some of them still made it in. Some of the drawing, like the little, it'll be fun to share them after the book comes out. But
That is so
yeah,
cool. So
that's
like
just how
like
the
like
world building sort of happened. Yeah.
I love that. So your kid gets to say, "Hey, see that? Mine. I did that one."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be too proud of it. I think he's excited. It was going to be like a very we're heavily into like kaiju stuff and
Yes.
there's yeah, we all the whole thing. My wife especially, my wife is her favorite thing is like disaster movies and anything where like the world is just gonna like blow up over whatever. So she's a huge Godzilla fan and all that stuff. And so I was thinking that was going to be the type of book it was going to be. But then as I was starting work on it, I realized I just wanted to make it a little bit more, I don't know, less antagonistic. And
Hmm.
I wanted to create some more positivity and adventure. And so I really was thinking more in lines of things like, I don't know, like The Princess Bride, the Goonies,
Yeah.
those types of things, like that aesthetic of adventure storytelling is really what was at the forefront of mine. That's what got me excited about making a new graphic novel. If I was going to spend this much time, what would make me excited about drawing it? And those were the things that
Hmm.
I kind of thought of.
Yeah, like reading about this, it definitely has that vibe of like an epic adventure, but not like super duper serious. Like we're not trying to like
Right.
save the world here. So from there, let's talk about the story itself. Give us a quick walkthrough as to what the Moonlit Spiral is all about.
Okay. Bear with me. It's an odd book. It just it meshes a lot of sort of genres. And it was incredibly hard to even write a pitch packet for. So I was like, how do I explain this book? And most part of it is I look at what's on the shelf and I was like, what's not on the shelf and what do I want to read? And so, but in doing so, you create something that's just kind of really hard to talk about. But it's about it's generally really about it's a coming of age story for sure. It's the main two, the main character, he's like middle grade age. He's like, kind of the mid 13 age range. So like right at that cusp where things are sort of shifting and changing. And he's one of those kids that sort of, probably a lot of kids can relate to this, that just prefers being indoors, playing video games, doesn't really want to go out and into the world and explore much. And also, it's not like the world's the most easiest place to go around and adventure. But at the same time, he finds this hidden map, these clues. It's almost like it's more like a scavenger hunt, I think, really more than a treasure hunt story. But it's like this. He goes off on this treasure hunt based on these notes from his parents that had kind of passed away previous. And he just goes off looking for this long lost treasure. In fact, not even this long lost treasure, but like the last treasure that actually exists in this world, where treasure hunting was just sort of this huge thing that existed within the world that I've kind of built. So all these treasures have been kind of been discovered, except for this one. He goes off and finds it. But it's sort of his journey is sort of kind of led that way from like this sort of magical box-like girl that sort of shows up randomly in his house. And it's really, that's the relationship that's the crux of the book, is like him and her. He's got his best friend that's on the journey with him, but it's really about their relationship and what I'm trying to tell others through how they're kind of I don't know, how they're sort of like
Yeah.
interacting and relating. And in the end, I realized I realized I didn't even know what exactly the book was about until I finished it. I was like, this is just me writing about what it's like to be a dad, and through a
That's a great
13-year-old
pitch.
kid, and
That is
it's
a
really
great
honestly, I think, what it's about.
I think you have your pitch, sir.
That
Being a
was the
dad in a fantasy
messiest pitch.
world.
Even I was listening to myself talk. I was like, this is a mess, but I'll get better. I have months to refine this, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, you got some time. You got some time. So, like I said before, I just love the art here. It's really, really amazing stuff. Really unique, I think, because it's that combination. And I'm not an artist, so I'm talking out of my ass entirely here. But I really
Oh,
love the color and the energy of it. And it's not. It's a nice comic because it's a nice comic,
oh, thank you.
which is
Thanks.
a nice change of
Oh,
pace sometimes.
I have my postcards here. Here.
Please, yeah, let's see that. Let everyone
There's
else see. That's
whoop,
just great. I
that's the
love it.
cover. Yeah, that's the back cover. I just took the back cover and the front cover and made a postcard out of it. But
That
yeah,
works. That really
but
works.
yeah.
So when you were drawing all this, did you get a chance to kind of try some like new things, whether it's like new styles, techniques,
Oh yeah.
tools? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I had first started it, again, I was coming off of clay patching, so I wanted to do something different. I still kind of drew the book digitally and stuff, but I was experimenting with different coloring approaches and brushes. And now people, I think, probably used to, from the art I've been posting for like the past 5 years or so, I've been using this really kind of rough textured brush and getting very loose with it. When I was
Hmm.
doing Clio. I was like kind of drawing in vector. I was kind of like making sure I was using all these perspective tools and making sure everything was really exact and refined. I didn't want to do any of that. I approached even when it was digital, I just approached it as if it was a traditional canvas. So I was just kind
Mm,
of sketching and erasing and letting the line kind of do what it needed to do. And even with the colors, letting them sort of bleed in and out where they needed to be, and let those sort of accidental things like stay within. I've put that into a lot of the stuff I've been besides Moonlit Spiral that I've been doing ever since. A lot of the fan art or the Spider-Man books and things like that. But that's where it started from.
yeah,
With Moonlit when I first started this book, and I'm just trying to try some so it would look different than my other things that I've done.
sure,
I'm
sure.
always thinking like each book I've done is like practice for the next thing. Like how can I improve?
Yeah,
Do something different, a little bit better. And maybe it's not going to be better, but at least it's going to be different.
yeah.
At least I
So
tried something new.
yeah, so do
So
you
yeah.
think you really improved as an artist in making the Moonlit Spiral?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest improvement is I'm having more fun doing it. When it gets too technical, it almost becomes like a slog. I'm just like, I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm not enjoying it because it's not organic,
Hmm.
So that part of it, and I think just bringing more of that enjoyment into it, I think heightened up that came out, I think, in the characters' personality, the worlds, and the line work and all of that. So I think so. I mean, also just, over time, I think each drawing I'm hopefully improving a little exponentially over time. And even now looking back, I was, going through the pages and, doing, color correcting, sending them off to the publisher and stuff. And there's things I would definitely, if I was to do it again, redraw that I feel like I've gotten better at. But I'm still fairly, I'm very happy with how it turned out, and hopefully I'll stay happy with it. If
I'm
it
sure you I'm sure
by
you will.
October, and
Hey, I'm sure you will, man. Let's talk characters because of course, you got to have the characters to make a book. And I want to talk to you about your method of just like character creation, how you kind of brought the ideas onto your page.
yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a combination of sort of writing, drawing, writing, drawing. I generally start with just drawing, just starting I have a idea of the personality, what I want in my head, and I just start drawing a bunch of like maybe heads, bodies, and just trying to get a feel for that. But then I'll kind of turn my chair to where I write, and I will just like jot down sort of like favorites, personality quirks, just to get a sense of who they are as a person. Stuff that won't even show up in the books at all, but it's just so I know as I'm writing them what they would do, how they would respond to a situation or dialogue and all of that stuff. And then, I'll go back and then I'll refine that, draw some more. And over time, just kind of, it usually takes a good about, 4 or 5 drawings for the character really starts to kind of form. They're like kind of this, they're just Play-Doh, and they kind of become something that looks more like a statue or like an actual character. And it's just lot of that, just a lot of back and forth. A lot of the times, I start with the main character and I'll go, well, what do I need to play against his personality to, kind of drive the story I want to do? What's going to challenge him? What's going to make him laugh? And that's how the other characters kind of arrive, So I think the Batgirl and Supergirl stuff I do is a good example of that for people that since people aren't really familiar with Moonlit Spiral yet. But I create Kara and Babs, and I write them in a way that they're always sort of conflicting, but they still, there's that friendship as well. And I love characters like that. I love characters that aren't just carbon copies of each other,
Hmm.
because it gets boring. And so. And you get some really fun and funny situations and dialogue out of that. So that's kind of how that happened. That said, the magical fox-like girl, even though she's like kind of a fox-like girl, she is like almost 100% based on my youngest, in terms of how her mannerisms, how she like kind of approaches the world, how she talks, moves. all of those things kind of just came from watching him and being with that. And then the main character is really my oldest. He's the one that's just a little bit more of a realist, kind of approaching things a little bit more cautiously, not as eager to kind of go off and do something a little bit more challenging, but not unwilling at the same time to do that if the need arises. So, and then there's his best friend, who's like another a female character. I don't know. She's just sort of the cop. She's like in between both of them. She's the sort of
Mhm.
thing that kind of keeps. She's the sort of the glue that sort of keeps that little trio together. And
Yeah.
I mean, she's got things that I could say that came from my wife, that came from me, that came from my sisters, it's all over. So she serves a story in a way that just if she wasn't there, the other two characters wouldn't really gel as much. So that's why I think she's important as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have talked a lot about the story. We've talked about the art. Now, of course, comics though is a business. Like anything else, it's a business that you're trying to grow here. So, for those of us at home that are looking to start our own comic, what in your opinion is a really important first step?
Oh, to start a comic? Well, the first
Yeah.
thing is just to start it.
Yeah.
I always I do a lot of author visits and talking about comics and stuff, and I always tell kids one of the things I tell them is always, if you don't know what you want to draw, if you don't know what you want to write, just start something. Put a circle on a piece of paper. What's against the circle? What's inside the circle? If you don't know what to write, write about a dream you had last night. What is the person next to you doing? And just sort of start off that way and then see where it takes you. Because ultimately, your mind's going to start wandering someplace, ideas are going to start forming, and you're going to just start drawing or writing, and something creative will happen. I think it's important to just let your mind sort of be bored every so often, and so that creativity can kind of pour through. So that's the
Yeah.
first step. So whether you want to write, whether you want to draw, the first way is just to do that. And then my second advice would be to start small, and not try to do a graphic novel, or even try to do a 20-page comic. I would say do a 3-page comic at the most. See if you can tell us a beginning, a middle, and the end, and just 6 pages, a few amount of panels, just to get so you can finish something. Share it, post it online, get some views on it, get some people to talk about it. Take their advice if they're giving you things that you could be doing better. Take those, compliments as well. I'm the worst at taking compliments because I see everything that's worth. I was like, no way, you're lying. It's not that good. I'm just like, I see the worst in everything I do. But take those compliments and so you can the things that are working, hone in on those, and the things that aren't working, improve. But I think that's the most important thing is just you got to
Mhm.
make it, and you got to make it manageable. You can't just go off and make something massive, because you might not finish it, you might get bored of it,
Mhm.
you might disappoint people by getting so far into it, and people are starting to want to know what's going to happen, and then you can't finish it for whatever reason. So start small is what I always say.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree. Don't give yourself like a 20 trade series to do. Just do like one panel, like you said, do something
Yeah.
short and go from there. So, as someone who has been doing comics for a little while now, because you mentioned your other series, Cleopatra in Space, what are some of the big lessons you've learned from like doing comics there that have really like helped you a lot?
That's a great question. Time management for sure. I can be I'm pretty good at I went to an art college, Columbus College of Art and Design is where I went, and
Hmm.
they really hammered into the workload there. It was a lot. And so you kind of had to learn how you're going to manage your time and get these things done on time. So after that, when it came into doing comics, it was a lot of work, especially because I'm writing, drawing, and coloring, all my stories as well. I have to really chunk that into different spaces. And I think I kind of learned like the best approaches to do that. And so instead of saying I'm going to work this much time, of doing something, I usually say I'm going to get this much accomplished in a day.
Mm.
And by just the mental process that I'm going to say I'm going to draw 2 pages. I got to get
Hmm.
2 pages drawn. Mentally, I know what I need to do to get that 2 pages drawn. Rather than say I'm going to work for 8 hours, I might end up spending too long on something that doesn't need to be spent too long on, too short.
Hmm.
But I can look at the clock and go, I need to be picking up the pace here or this. Um, and and you got to stick to that too. You have to, I think one of the biggest things I've learned is not everything can be perfect.
Uh,
See, most artists, I'm myself included, I can be very much a perfectionist. I can just noodle away at stuff unnecessarily, especially with comics, because comics aren't, if it's a sequential work, not every panel should actually be an immaculate illustration. The panels that you want the eyes to stay on a long time, yeah, you want to slow down time, make those things. But if you want time sped up, then things don't need to be immaculate. You can kind of let that art kind of breathe a little bit, be a little less detailed, and that you can control sort of how a comic is read in those ways, and which makes it a lot more fun. You don't feel the pressure of everything having to be perfect.
mm.
So that's one thing, kind of learning that, and then also just from writing my own scripts. I don't write comic scripts in a way that, in fact, I never used to write scripts. It wasn't until I was working with, like with Cleopatra and Space, working with an editor, where I realized they need to know what the story is going to be before I just start doing all the hard and laborious part of drawing it. And so I
Hmm.
started working out a script, but I'm not a script writer. I really never went to the script writing school or anything. So I don't write for other artists. I just write for myself. So I don't write this is what's happening on this page one, this is what's going on, panel here, this many panel. No, I just start writing. And so it's mostly a lot of dialogue, and I might say something's happening here, and there's the facial expression here. And so I just have this long script, and then I have to go, okay, hopefully this is a 200 page, or in the case of Moonlit Spiral, into being a 300-page book. But I've learned to sort of look at what I have and go, okay, this needs to be this many pages. And it's really fun actually to go, okay, creatively, how am I going to design and lay out this scene in this many pages? Because if it's any longer, I'm going to go over page count, or if it's any shorter, I'm going to do disservice to what I want to tell.
Hmm.
And so I've learned, it's just a process that took me, over the course, mostly through working on Cleopatra in Space, of learning how to make a graphic novel for a publisher, over making, say, doing a web comic where I'm just can just, make it, just start going into the comic myself and kind of write and draw it as I go, which is how I actually started Cleopatra in Space when it was a webcomic. I just sort of drew each page as I went without really a clear idea of how it was going to end up. So yeah.
That can be fun though, right? Because like I'm not
Yes,
really sure
yeah,
where it's
it's so much
going.
better, and it's less stressful. That I mean, that's both ways are great. It depends on
Yeah.
what your goals are for the story.
Hmm.
If you haven't, if you know what your ending is going to be, but you don't have any sort of need to reach that anytime, then I think just writing as you go, letting those sort of like go off on those little tangents, is great. And I think some of the best stories can be told that way. If you know, well, this book has to be done by this point, then I think you have to be a little bit more rigid. You have to go, well, is this, I think you could still go on some tangents, because I think those are important to a story. But you have to go, well, how important is that,
Hmm.
and pick and choose. So yeah, I mean, both ways. It just depends on the type of story and the format that I think you're telling, that you're doing. Graphic
Yeah.
novels, webcomics, very different. I
Oh
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right. Well, all right. Now, Mike, of course, we have to talk gear, because I imagine as someone in your line of work, there's all kinds of toys that like you can use. What would you say, especially if someone isn't sure what to do, really? What
Yeah.
are some of the more essential things for making comics, especially in 26?
Yeah, that's another great question. I work primarily digitally, and I think it's a great way actually to work,
Hmm.
especially for comics and graphic, because you're working. I mean, at least I don't think the final stage where you're sort of inking has to be digital, but I think for that penciling and layout stage, I think it's great because you can just sort of move stuff around, change things, lay out pages, and it just cuts down a lot of that time. And also you don't have to scan stuff, which I couldn't stand doing.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of the process has got quicker. I've eliminated penciling completely out of my, and that was a big difference too with Moonlit Spiral. I did not pencil the book. I went from my rough layout straight to inks, to keep it feeling very loose and fun. And I've been kind of doing that since. So that's a time saver by working digitally. And I don't want to tell people what they should use for just, I think there's so many things out there, and I think it's so affordable now that more than when I even like 5 years ago, especially since it's not even like Wacom that's making these drawing these pen displays. You have XP and you got Huron and all these other companies that are competing, which is great. I'm still using a 15-year-old Cintiq for all of my. I was just honestly just this week I was like, this is not. I had to like download some sort of like hack just to plug it into my computer to get it to work through the driver. And I was like, this is not sustainable anymore. I have to find a new one, and it was stressing me out how many pen displays there are now. I was like, I don't know what to get. I need a store where I can just test them all out, but they don't exist. So I don't know, maybe
Nope.
the convention or something. But like, but I know I have a ton of friends that just love using their iPads,
Yeah.
and I think that's great. It doesn't work for me because I have to stop what I'm drawing every so often to change the brush size or color, and it's just because I don't have a flow. Usually I like a Cintiq because I have one hand on a keyboard where I'm just doing this, and this never stops moving, and so it feels just very natural, like I'm drawing on paper. But for everybody, it's different. Everybody, and I think as whatever you decide to use is just sort of stick to that, figure it out. Use it for like, say if you're gonna say I'm gonna use Procreate, that's great. Um, Use it for a good like month and just don't just go, oh,
Mhm.
I've tested for like a couple days and then it's not for me. Try it, really try it and figure it out. And I also would, if I had to recommend a program, I would say Clip Studio Paint, bar
Mhm.
none, is the one. If you're making comics and you're not using Clip Studio Paint, you're making things more difficult for yourself. It's all I
Yeah.
can say. They've got it's made for comics, and there's just so many tools that just make things easier on you.
All
And it just
right.
works great. Yeah, and it's cheap. It's so I can't imagine. I mean, oh
Yep.
my
That's
gosh,
big.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
big.
you can get a year of Clip Studio Paint for what costs 1 month of Photoshop. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, take notes, people. You're getting some. You're
I'm
getting.
exaggerating maybe a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's not it's I might not be. I mean, it's
All right. Well, you know what? Check out for yourself,
yeah,
folks, and
yeah.
see what happens. Well, Mike, we've talked all about this, and we're going to wrap things up in just a little bit. But before we go, the big question to ask you is, what's next for you?
That's a really good question. Well, I wrapped up I like just a week ago. I still have to send the files to them, but I've wrapped up my fifth Spider-Man. I've been doing these series of young reader Spider-Man books, these team up books where Spider-Man talks to or well he talks to a pigeon and then he teams up with he teams up with different characters out of Marvel comics, not the
Oh,
MCU, not the Marvel universe, but characters. It has strictly Marvel comics. And so I have this I have this pigeon character that I created for my stories, and that's the most fun. It's just the dialogue and it's just a regular pigeon, and the pigeon doesn't talk either. It's just a pigeon. But that's the kind of the crux of those. And I finished the fifth one of those. And I am in the process of starting a script for a new book, which I don't know if I can announce because it's so new. But I will say it's like the last thing you would expect, especially for somebody that's gone from like sci-fi to superheroes to fantasy and treasure hunting and adventure. It's almost like the last book you would expect me to have for my follow-up to those. But also, if you've been reading a lot, seen a lot of my art and seen a lot of the stuff I've posted online, it's exactly the thing you would expect me to do. So it's both like it's really weird, but it's it's gonna be a challenge. It's nothing like I've done before. So I'm excited about it. I'm working on the script, and that's gonna take me about 18 months. That's the time frame I'm contracted
Hmm.
for. It's not even like that I've given. Like I have to have the book done in 18 months. So that's what I'm going to focus on. After that, I have been uh, since the beginning of last year developing a new character on my Patreon. I haven't been posting her anywhere else but my Patreon, and I have like over 30 drawings of her, mostly pinups and things like that. But a story has formed in my head, and I'm kind of really excited after I'm done with this other thing to kind of dive into what that's going to be using her.
Hmm.
So I'm going to start kind of expanding her cast a little bit and kind of working that simultaneously during this other one. And I'll post that stuff to my Patreon for any patrons that want to kind of see the progress of that. But for the most part, it's supposed to be like pinups and things like that of this character that is my way of sort of trying to transition a little bit out of doing so much fan art and just wanting to do more creator own stuff.
I like it. I like it. Well, folks, we have just been talking all about this stuff. Now, here's what you do. You go to OperationSpaceCat.com. Best website name I have ever seen, by the way. I love it. I love it. What you call it, and check out the work. Of course, pre-order the Moonlit Spiral, available on October 6th through Candlewick Press. Get your copies of Cleopatra in Space. Follow Mike on the socials. There's always great art being posted. And Mike, thank you once again for doing this. I've been having a blast, and we'll be talking very soon for the next conversation.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate this. This was fun.
And that brings this episode to a close. I really hope you enjoyed the episode and found something useful along the way. If you want to support the show, it's really simple. Just like the episode and share as much as you can. If you want to check out other similar episodes, you can find that right here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, it's right there. This has been Citywide Bytes, and I'll see you all next time.